Hi, I'm George Howard. Welcome to our show today. Today we're talking with Kelvin Brown.
How you doing? My name is Kelvin Brown, 20 years old, hip-hop music producer from Cincinnati, Ohio.
So Kelvin, tell me where you are right now. I know you're making some fantastic music, but is that starting to translate out? You selling records? You made records? You making beats for people? Where are you?
Yeah, I've made a lot of records, mostly on the underground scene, kind of like work for hire type. Now I don't have any contracts. I have poor man's copyright, and I'm really like wanting to take it to the next level. You know what I'm saying? I want to actually start seeing more of a return on my investment on my work.
Good, yeah. You've in 12 seconds have thrown out a bunch of really important terms. Work for hire means someone's coming and saying, Kelvin, we want you to make us a beat. We'll pay you X number of dollars for it, and then it's our beat, and it's no longer your beat, right?
Right.
And that's an important term for people to know. And the way work for hire works is once you've exchanged the cash for the beat, you're no longer the author of that beat, nor do you have any rights over it. So it's important to understand that. And then you mentioned the term poor man's copyright, and I assume you're talking about mailing yourself discs, yeah. So people do that to set a time, set a postage stamp, so that if somebody claims to have written the beat before you did, then you have evidence to show exactly when you did it. And they call it poor man's copyright because the alternative is to send in a version of the song to the Library of Congress and register it, which is what you should do, because it holds up a whole lot better in this day and age where people can use a laser printer and make a pretty realistic looking date of postage on it. But beyond that, you're saying that you want to kind of take it to the next level. So what is that next level in your mind?
My next level, I always set my goal high. My next level is a publishing deal with either a record label, with a record label. I'm one of them. I don't want a lofty advance because I don't know who they'll set me with, and I don't know how they'll sell and how they'll recoup. But I do want 5, 10 songs publishing deal. Then I want to take that publishing deal and use the money to start my own production company. I want to sign my own contracts and be off on my own with my own knowledge.
Nice. That certainly is great to hear. I mean, to say that you want to work with a label, you didn't want a big advance, and an advance is simply money that a record company or a publishing company will loan you. Really, they pay you some money, but then you don't get any royalties until you've made back that money via the sale of your work. So the sooner you recoup, the sooner you pay that back, then the leverage changes. And a lot of times in record deals, most artists never recoup, and that's why they're always kind of beholden to the label. So with your goals to kind of have your own thing, it's really important to get out there and not be unrecouped, because until you're recouped, you really don't have much leverage. But you said something interesting too. You're kind of leveraging this idea of the record company or the publishing company to establish your own thing. And then you'll go out and do what? Sign other artists, or?
Yeah, what I eventually want to do, I call it taking over the world. I want to.
Well, one thing you need to do is make sure that you swing for the fences.
Yeah, take over the world. That is hip hop, and I see myself signing my own artists. I want to sign other producers, kind of like in a big brother, little brother role. You know how you like. Yeah, you love your little brother and you want to give him all the information you've had so, they can go off and be bigger and better than you. And I do realize that in music, period, that the people that you bring on under you are less likely to be more successful than your peak of success. So it's like the higher I set myself, the better example I become, the higher standards that they have and the more access that they have to the resources that I've accomplished and I've attained. And my next question I wanted to ask you was, do you think that, when a producer looks for, their version of a record deal, publishing deal, it's better to go with the publishing company or with the actual record label?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, in point of fact, what you're talking about is a publishing deal. And a record deal historically has been when a a label signs an artist who performs, someone that whether they write the songs or do the rap or whatever, they're the person that is on the record, and the record company promotes the work and tries to sell the record. That's just, and it's changing, but that's historically what it's been. A publishing deal, on the other hand, is exclusively for the writer of the music, be it the music itself or the lyrics or whatever. And the publisher tries to go out and get those songs used, get them placed on an album, get them placed in a commercial, wherever. So for you, it seems maybe more like a publishing deal would make more sense. I mean, you do get the occasional, I mean, for somebody like Kanye West, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he started as, you probably know more than I, but started as making beats for other people before he had his own career. So while he was making beats for Jay-Z, he wasn't signed to Def Jam. He was just a producer that probably had a publishing deal, and the publisher helped connect him with Jay-Z. But then Kanye said, well, you know what, I want to put out my own records, so he needed a record deal to do that. But so for you, I would say that the key is to have somebody that's helping you connect your beats to artists. And you want to do it across labels. You don't want to do it just for one label.
Oh yeah, I don't want to be exclusive to one label, right? Because when you're signing to one label, you're restricted to their artists. Right. So you're, exactly. You know what I'm saying, you're leaning on them to bring you the talent that you need to work with.
Right.
Now that in itself could be leverage, because you might have heard of an artist, you might bring that artist to the label,
sure,
or you know, that would give you more leverage in doing.
Yeah, if you're acting kind of as an A&R person. But back to the difference between a publishing deal and a record deal. It does sound to me that if you want to be making beats across the spectrum, you know, for whoever, people on indie labels, maybe someone who doesn't have a label deal yet, mm-hmm. or somebody who's signed to Universal, you need to do that via a publishing company. One thing that's important to know is until you assign the rights to your songs, your beats to someone else, you are the publisher. You don't need a publishing deal to do that. You are de facto the publisher. So you need, and it sounds like you're already doing it, who is using your beats now? How is that working now? You said you've got tracks on records. How did that happen?
Oh, I'll have tracks on records with barcodes on them.
Oh, okay. Is it like mixtape type stuff? Or?
Yeah, mixtape for, I don't want to say for promotional use only, because, I mean, it's independent labels.
I understand.
Independent acts, you know, songs, just work.
Right.
And, you know, I don't have a first actual placement.
Okay.
You know, but I want that.
Right. Well, that's the next step. Really.
That's the next step.
So how does that happen?
How
are you going to get to that next step? Do you have a strategy to do that? Or?
Man, making relationships.
Right.
I look at business cards as being beat CDs. Mm-hmm. Name,
great.
Number, great. Email address. Yeah. Every time I go out, you know, if you're an artist, here.
Yeah. Well, they are your business card. Your beat CDs are your calling card, your business card. And so the key is to figure out, you know what you love, you know your values, what matters to you. And it sounds like when you talk about this kind of mentor relationship, you have a very strong sense of values. So it's finding those artists that have the similar values that align. And so you've got to know the landscape. Now you're from Cincinnati, you know that scene very well. Why do you laugh?
Because, like you said, Cincinnati, and I'm just instantly thinking about, you know, like how untapped it is. Okay. Like my city is like a barrel with crabs trying to get out.
Huh.
Like
that may be on a bumper sticker at some point. Cincinnati, like a barrel with crabs trying to get out. Come visit.
There's a lot of talent in Cincinnati. There's so many across the boards, but it's like people sacrifice their individuality to make what's hot. Mm-hmm. So when you come to Cincinnati, you might hear a hot record, right, but it's not different. Mm-hmm. You know, like what labels are doing now that I really hate is like they're microwaving rappers. Like they make them hot for a second.
That's a great term.
They make them hot. They put them on with the hottest singer or the hottest producer or whatever, and they expect to sell 1 million records. Sure. But I mean, they're doing that with rapper A. They're like interchangeable parts, like puzzle pieces. Yeah. And the people who stay around the longest, you know, the ones that have their own sound, and there are artists of that caliber in Cincinnati, and I feel I'm a producer of that caliber. So it's kind of like that's why I'm so selective of who I work with, and that's why I'd rather leave Cincinnati, find myself, and come back, and then build. You see what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, I think it does go back to values. You don't want to work with these, as you, a wonderful turn of phrase, microwave rap. So again, the question then is, you've left Cincinnati, you're here in New Orleans, you plan to go back to Cincinnati. How do you connect? Is it simply just, where do you hear these people? Is it going out at parties? Is it shows? How do you connect and get this business card that is your beats to them?
Just going out, going to clubs, listening to what's playing in the clubs, talking to people.
Right.
I mean, you almost have to be your own A&R.
Oh, no question about it.
You have to be.
Not almost. You have to be.
You have to be your own A&R. And I was at a conference 2 weeks ago here in New Orleans, the Dream Mega Conference, and I talked to Riggs Morales, A&R at Shady Records, and he said, I don't look at BDS spins to sign artists. My BDS spins is the people in the corner, people on the street.
Sure.
Within my mind frame goes as a producer, it's like, okay, yeah, this song's hot. What makes this artist hot? What makes me gravitate to him? What makes me want to work with him? What makes me want to put my stamp on this? Because like when you're a producer, like you are putting the stamp of approval on that because you say, hey, I think this rapper is good enough to work with. I think I can invest some time, I can invest some talent, I can invest money into you, and you're investing all this in me. We both have to see a reasonable return on our work.
Well, again, you've brought up some great points. Just to pull back for a second, BDS is a kind of rating monitor for radio play. It's much like SoundScan, and you're right. A lot of record companies do look at those types of things to determine who they're going to sign. It goes back to your idea of the kind of microwave thing. It pops up hot for a second, but for the long term, it's typically not a good strategy. So let's jump forward a little bit. It seems to me you've got somewhat of a strategy to find this person. Wonderfully, you've got a very strong set of values, and you will eventually find somebody.
And I haven't found that person. Sorry.
Okay, so we're still working.
I haven't found you, but you know when I find you.
Yes. So when you find this person, and maybe that helps, you said you want to each have a kind of return on the investment, and that kind of speaks to this idea of some sort of relationship, contractual or otherwise. How would it work? So you find an MC, right? And that's kind of what we're talking about. You find somebody that's going to add voice to your beats. How would you break up the copyright?
I would hope to do it 50-50, but I've been trying to educate myself, and I realized the more work that the producer does, the more cut that he's entitled to. Personally, I would set it up short term than long term. I mean, you can't trust anybody. I would set up a song deal. I would say, well, I'll produce these next 10 songs for you. Whatever, we'll split it 50-50. Now, if I produce the song with the hook in mind, then you can split it 60-40.
Okay. And it's an important point. I mean, when you write these beats, you've got 100% of the copyright. Somebody's got lyrics with no beats, right? But they have a melody. They've got 100% of that copyright, right? So when they crash together, you've created a joint work, and how you divide that up is a really important detail. And too many artists, not just in the hip hop world, but in any time more than one writer comes together, folk or rock or whatever, it's a big issue because those copyrights last forever, and all the revenue that comes in is going to be divided the way that you proportion it out. So if you do it 50-50 and AT&T uses one of your 30-second little snippet for their next ad, and that generates $1 million of revenue, splits right out.
I really don't have a problem with that. Like, I honestly can't say that I don't have a problem with that with anybody that I work with that I reached an agreement with beforehand.
The problem arises if you did it 51-49, and you had 49 for whatever reason, and AT&T comes and they want to do it, and you're like, hey, $1 million, okay. And MC guy says, I don't sell my work for anyone. He can stop it. So the split of copyright has a very large impact. So you need to be very careful how you divide it up. And it's not easy to change either. You mentioned that you want to kind of start it this way, and then, once you establish that and fix it that way, how are you going to force someone to change it? So I think it's really important in the hip hop world when you're doing it, because it typically is a producer on one hand and an MC on the other, and they're constantly creating these joint works. We started this conversation with a work for hire, and you need to move away from that. You can't. You clearly have talent. You clearly have a vision. You need to do less of, okay, I'll sell you my beat for X number of dollars. You need long-term assets, and to start building a whole catalog of work that becomes multiple streams of revenue for you. The question is, you find it, you make some kind of deal, then what? You've got a great partnership with someone. You've worked through the split of the copyright. How do you get the world to hear what you're doing? How do you generate revenue?
Wow. And that should be a question I'm asking you, but now I'm thinking like, now in my brain.
It's the big question.
The big question with the way the game is changing is, yeah, you could take it to a record label, but now you're taking it to a record label,
with no leverage.
With none, they're going to end up eating you alive.
They will.
So it's like you almost, as an independent, have to take that music out there.
Absolutely.
Like you have to sell it like it's the last drop of water and everybody's thirsty. And there is the money question, and I really don't have any answer to that besides you got to get it out there.
You got to get it out there, and you gotta. Somebody said this line. I'd never heard it before, but I love it. Somebody said, "I found a horse. The horse was thirsty. I brought it to water. I led it to water, and it drank." And I don't know. I just think that's genius. If you find a horse that is thirsty, it'll drink the water, right? Mm-hmm. So as you said, you create something great, and you find people that are looking for that thing, and you connect them, right? And that needs to start at a local, regional level. And hip-hop is still one of the genres where, and it's starting to spread where all genres, again, are local, but certainly hip-hop has a regional thing. You don't just go out there and try and go nationwide, and you shouldn't try and do that with any form of music. It's a suicide. So, there's got to be some kind of scene in Cincinnati, certainly there is in New Orleans, where you can start making emotional connections, even with a handful of people. Get people to become evangelists for your work. Get people talking about Kelvin's music and spreading it on these little granular basis, just a little tiny bit at a time. Giving the CD away, collecting, email addresses, doing all of the things that you have to do. And the hip hop marketing is some of the most innovative out there in terms of the mixtapes and the way they leverage more established artists. So you got to find that kind of person who's one step above you, as a DJ or an MC or whatever, and make a connection, be it performing before this person performs somewhere else, getting a mixtape together where you're on it, and start building that buzz and just gradually building the buzz.
Man,
there's no shortcuts.
There are none. Very this is like the greatest quote, is everything. It's like Jay said it. I'm renegade on the blueprint. So I drove by the fork in the road. I went straight. I really believe that I really think that everybody has to find their niche in their own lane, because, like you said with the mixtapes. When 50 Cent did it, 50 Cent was the first person to tape mixtapes. Everybody had been doing it.
Right.
It has been done before millions of times. But when you think of 50 Cent's rise to his popularity, you think of his mixtapes.
Absolutely.
Now everybody and their grandma got a mixtape.
Right. So maybe it's no longer a good strategy.
Right. So now with the way the internet is going, I personally think that this song is the worst song ever. But Crank That Soulja Boy. It came off the internet. YouTube, everybody YouTube the video. Everybody knew the dance before it came out. The song comes out on the radio. It's a #1 record. Billboard.
For 4 weeks in a row, it has been the most downloaded track.
It's like he doesn't have to make he's already recouped the money just by digital downloads. Right. But the point is, people will always refer to him being the person that used YouTube to get himself out there.
Absolutely right.
So I definitely agree with that. But hip hop is like any other form of genre of music, has always been based on relationships and
Yeah.
word of mouth. It's always been, you know what I'm saying, oh, well, Kelvin, you know, he's hot. Or it's like, oh, well, you know, like Jay-Z's the greatest lyricist ever.
And it has to start somewhere with those trusted sources. And you have to get these evangelists that begin to be able to talk about that, begin to be able to get people talking about you and making those connections. And you use the tools that are available to you. And I think, you know, you make a great point that if mixtapes are no longer, if they're kind of passe at this point, what's the next thing?
Yeah,
and you got to innovate. You
yeah,
got to constantly innovate.
I love it, like, how hip-hop grows. Like, now, like, since 50 Cent came, you have to do mixtapes.
Right.
They may not get you the same popularity, but now you have to do it.
It's part of it.
Now,
Part
just
of the
like
plan.
in the 80s when, you know, vinyl became, you know, a staple in hip-hop and people would come with vinyl. Yeah, vinyl, you have to do it. It's like you have to make mixtapes. Like, now everybody has to make a music video.
Right.
Everybody has to go on promo. Everybody will have to be on YouTube. But the thing that makes that the same is that those things connect you to the public. So now I think that everybody has to have a video camera on them. Like,
great.
you have to be everywhere. You have to stay accessible to your fans. You have to always be approachable, always be professional, always have a smile on your face whenever you don't want to. And just like, you just gotta be who you are. Like, I used to put my cell phone number on the internet, and I had like 15, 16-year-old kids call me like, you know, how do you do this? And it's like, man, I'm watching a movie with my girlfriend. But it's like, you have to talk to him, because who says that this kid may not turn you on to another rapper, who may not have the connections that you don't have. This kid coming from New York saying, man, I know like Joe Budden's manager. I had never talked to this kid in my life. He's like, do you want me, I mean, if you want, you know what I'm saying, I could, you know, give me your CD. Just because I talked to him and told him how to.
Well, it is connections, but you've got to, and the issue is, you know, we talk about YouTube on one hand and doing it regionally or locally on the other, and those are two wildly different things. The internet is a blast out to anyone, and it's completely unfocused. That said, if you make yourself available, and I think you're so smart to be, you know, having that video camera on you, making connections, making the connection between you and your fans a constant one, because they need that, because in this, everything's moving so fast, you need to be continuing to make the connections. The key is making sure that you're connecting with the right people. The key is not wasting your time with connecting people that just don't have the values that align, and gradually building it up, and you start to understand who these people are, what their values are, and you weed out the ones that don't matter, and you focus on the ones that do, and it becomes a virtuous thing. They start telling other people about you, and then it's a matter of how do you monetize that? How are you going to sell this? Are you going to start releasing your CDs via iTunes or whatever, Amazon, and then that puts you at a level where if and when the labels will start calling at that point. You know, the labels will wait and see for some regional thing to start to blow up, and then they'll knock on the door. At that point, you've got all the leverage. And that's where you go and you're able to make a deal with them and say, hey, look, I want a publishing deal, you know, and I'm happy to make a record for you, and we'll do a one-off. And you know what? You don't even need to pay me in advance, but I want $1 a record from record one, or $2 a record from record one. And I want a non-exclusive. I want to be able to go out and make beats for X, Y, and Z. That only comes once you've built it up at this regional base and made real connections. It doesn't happen where you've got some banging, you know, mixtape and some A&R guy hears it and says, yeah, we want to sign you, but we're going to do a 10-record deal, and you know, everything's going to be recoupable, and you know, that just doesn't work that way.
Put shackles on your feet. Yeah, but like for me, like, I just thought, I don't know anything about publishing deals, but I thought like a $10,000 advance for 10 songs, that's $1,000 a song. Like, is that smart?
It depends on the splits on the other side. So if they advance you 10 grand, and then they go out and they get those songs placed, other artists use them on their records, they get them used in movies, TV, or whatever, and the income that they generate from doing that, they got to split that with you. And I'd say they need to split it 75-25, 75 going your way. And most publishing deals are 50-50 splits, and they own the copyright forever. So if it's 10 grand for them to have the copyright forever, not a smart deal. If it's a 10 grand advance where they have what's called an administrative deal, where they can go out and collect for you and do a little bit of exploitation, but you get the copyrights back after a time, yeah, okay. I mean, when you're starting and you need them more than they need you, sometimes you have to do some deals that aren't great to get that leverage and build up. But always in the back of your mind, you got to be thinking, I'm going to start getting control of my copyrights and my assets. I'm not going to be relying on someone else to get the word out about me. I'm going to be in control. And you do that step by step, and I have a feeling you're going to do it great.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.